The Alpha Mafia said my real name before I had even reached the door, and every person in the private dining room stopped breathing. Elias Vale. 2 words. Quietly spoken. No threat in them. No anger. That made them worse. The violinist near the window lowered his bow. A glass slipped from someone's hand and struck the carpet without breaking. 12 men in tailored suits turned toward me at once, but none of them looked confused. They looked afraid. I kept one hand wrapped around the silver tray balanced against my hip. The other pressed hard against the plastic badge clipped to my vest. Noah Reed, it said. Banquet staff. Temporary hire. Nobody important. Nobody worth remembering. The man at the head of the table watched me over the rim of his untouched whiskey. Adrian Moretti. He was the reason the hotel manager had searched every employee twice before allowing us upstairs. He was the reason armed men stood beside the elevators while politicians, union bosses, and men with old scars pretended this was only a charity dinner. People called Adrian the alpha of the Moretti family when they thought he could not hear them. Nobody called him that to his face. "I think you have the wrong person, sir," I said. My voice came out steady. Years of practice had taught me how to lie without blinking. Adrian set down his glass. No, the single word changed the room. One of the men nearest me reached inside his jacket. Another pushed his chair back. My supervisor, standing by the service door, stared at me as if I had brought a bomb into the room. I should have left the tray and run. Instead, I counted the exits. Main door behind me. Service corridor to my left. Balcony doors across the room, locked against the winter wind. 2 guards at every route. There had been a time when hearing that name made me freeze. A time when my mother had gripped my face between both hands and whispered, "Never answer to it again." Not even if the person asking sounds kind. Especially then. I had obeyed her for 9 years. New city, new records, new name, new life built so carefully that even my landlord believed Noah Reed had been born in Ohio and had no living family. Then Adrian Moretti looked directly at me and said, "Come closer, Elias." The man who had reached inside his jacket drew his hand back out, empty. That frightened me more. He was not preparing to attack me. He was waiting to see what I would do. "My name is Noah," I said. A silver-haired man halfway down the table whispered something in Italian. The person beside him went pale. Adrian heard it. His gaze shifted for half a second, and the silver-haired man immediately lowered his eyes. That was the first proof the name meant something here. The second came when Adrian lifted 2 fingers. Every guard in the room moved at once, but not toward him. They formed a wall between me and the other guests. "No one leaves," Adrian said. Chairs scraped back. Anger flashed across several faces, but no one challenged him. My supervisor took 1 step toward the service door. A guard closed it before he reached the handle. The lock clicked. My temporary job had just become a locked room with the most dangerous men in the city, all of them staring at a name I had buried before I was old enough to understand it. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Adrian's expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. Recognition, maybe, or regret. "I want you alive long enough to hear the truth." A laugh broke from the far end of the table. Sharp, nervous. "This is impossible," someone said. The Vale boy died in the fire. My grip loosened. The tray tilted. A crystal decanter slid toward the edge, and Adrian was out of his chair before it fell. He caught it with one hand and the tray with the other. For 1 second, his fingers closed over mine. He was warm, steady, familiar in a way that made no sense. Then he looked at the thin white scar across my thumb. The scar I had gotten the night my mother dragged me through a shattered kitchen window while smoke filled our house. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You kept the scar," he said softly. My heart slammed once against my ribs. Nobody knew about that scar. Not the hospital that treated me under another child's insurance card. Not the family who hid us for 3 weeks. Not even the man who created my new identity. I pulled my hand away. "How do you know that?" Around us, the room had gone silent again, but this silence was different. Before, they had been shocked. Now they were listening. Adrian straightened slowly. "Because I was there the night you got it." The silver-haired man stood so fast his chair toppled backward. "Adrian, don't." Adrian ignored him. His attention never left me. "Your mother didn't die in that fire, Elias." The room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My mother had died 6 months later. That was what the death certificate said. That was what I had watched the doctor sign. Adrian reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. Every muscle in my body locked. He withdrew a small black envelope, its edges worn from being handled too many times. My real name was written across the front in my mother's handwriting. She left this with me, he said, and told me to give it to you only if they found you first. A heavy knock struck the locked door behind me. 3 times. Not hotel staff. Not a guest. A signal. The men at the table changed instantly. Hands went beneath jackets. Guards raised weapons. Adrian stepped in front of me, blocking me from the door with his body. Then the silver-haired man looked through the security screen beside the entrance, and all the color drained from his face. They know he's here. Adrian pressed the black envelope into my hand. On the back, beneath the broken seal, my mother had written one final sentence. Do not trust the man who tells you Adrian betrayed us. The first gunshot came through the door before Adrian could answer. Wood splintered inward. One of the guards beside the entrance dropped with a cry, clutching his shoulder, and the room exploded into motion. Men overturned the table. Glass shattered. Someone killed the lights. Adrian caught the back of my vest and dragged me behind a stone service bar as another round punched through the wall where my head had been. Stay down, he said. I held the black envelope against my chest. Who are they? The men your mother was running from. That answer should have clarified something. Instead, it made the room feel smaller. A guard fired twice through the ruined door. The return shot stopped. Then came silence, followed by the unmistakable hiss of smoke flooding through the vents. Adrian swore under his breath. They're not here to negotiate. The emergency lights flickered red. Across the room, the silver-haired man, Adrian had called him Vincent, pressed a cloth over the wounded guard's shoulder while shouting orders toward the kitchen. Nobody listened to me. Nobody even looked at me now. The name had made me the center of the room, but the attack had turned me into cargo. Adrian seized my wrist. Service exit. That door is locked. Not anymore. A blast shook the kitchen wall. The steel fire door buckled inward, and 2 of Adrian's men forced it open from our side. Cold air rushed through the gap. Beyond it was a narrow maintenance stairwell descending into darkness. Adrian pushed me toward it. Move. I stopped. My supervisor, the man who had hired me, was still trapped near the service door, curled behind a tipped serving cart. He has nothing to do with this. Adrian's expression hardened. Neither did the guard who was just shot. For 1 second, I hated him for saying it. Then he released me, crossed the open floor under cover fire, and hauled my supervisor up by the collar. He shoved him toward Vincent. Take the civilians through the freight route. It was a choice Adrian did not need to make. It cost him time. It cost him cover. And when another bullet tore across the room, it grazed his upper arm instead of mine. He did not react until we reached the stairwell. Blood had already soaked through his jacket. You're hit. Not badly. That isn't an answer. It's the only one we have time for. He pulled the door shut behind us, sealing out the smoke and gunfire. The stairwell lights were dead. We descended by the glow of his phone, 7 flights through concrete darkness while alarms screamed above us. My hand would not stop shaking. Not from the shooting. From the envelope. My mother's handwriting had not changed in 9 years. She always pressed too hard with a pen. Every letter cut deep into the paper. Do not trust the man who tells you Adrian betrayed us. It was not a warning against Adrian. It was a warning about someone else. Who tells me? You betrayed us. I asked. Adrian missed 1 step. Barely. But I felt it through his grip on my wrist. You read the back. Answer me. Not here. They shot through a hotel door because you said my name. I think here stopped matching. He looked back at me. Red emergency light washed across half his face. Your mother named 1 person in that letter. If I say his name before we know who can hear us, you may not survive the hour. A metallic clang echoed below. Adrian turned off his phone. We froze. Footsteps moved upward through the stairwell. Slow. Deliberate. Not hotel guests fleeing. Adrian guided me into the recess behind a utility pipe and placed himself between me and the stairs. He drew a compact pistol from beneath his jacket. The footsteps grew closer. My lungs burned from holding my breath. A figure appeared, one landing below. Adrian raised the gun. Moretti, Vincent whispered from the dark. Adrian lowered it an inch. Vincent climbed into view, supporting the wounded guard. Blood streaked his white shirt. The freight route was compromised, he said. Your cars are gone. 2 drivers dead. Adrian's jaw tightened. The garage. Sealed. Vincent's gaze shifted to me, and the distrust in it was immediate. This began the second you called him Elias. It began years before tonight, Adrian said. Tonight, they learned we found him. You announced it to a room full of men. Because one of them had already recognized him. Vincent went still. So did I, Adrian continued. The waiter at the south wall took a photograph before I said the name. He sent it. My stomach dropped. I remembered a young server standing near the wine cabinet. He had left the room moments before Adrian spoke. Then why call me out? Because once that image was sent, hiding you among the staff was over. Calling your name forced every loyal man in that room to reveal his reaction. And the disloyal ones. Vincent asked. One reached for his phone. Two looked at the exit. One smiled. Adrian's eyes met mine. The man who smiled is gone. The name had not simply exposed me. It had been bait. I should have felt used. Instead, I realized Adrian had turned the entire room into a test because he believed someone there was already hunting me. Trust did not replace fear. It complicated it. Vincent handed Adrian a key card. There's an old laundry tunnel beneath this level. It exits across the avenue. We moved again, faster now. At the bottom of the stairs, Adrian opened a reinforced door hidden behind stacked linen carts. The tunnel beyond smelled of steam and rust. Halfway through, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I nearly ignored it. Only 3 people had the number. My landlord, my supervisor, the identity broker who had built Noah Reed. The screen showed no caller ID. Then a photograph appeared. My apartment door, hanging open. Every drawer emptied. My mattress cut apart. A second image followed. The metal box I kept beneath the kitchen floor, open and empty. Inside that box had been the only original document connecting me to Elias Vale. Adrian saw the screen. They searched your home. They took everything. A message appeared beneath the photograph. Noah Reed is dead. Come alone if Elias wants to know why his mother lied. My legs stopped moving. Adrian read the message over my shoulder. His face changed, not shock, but recognition. They know about the letter, he said. Then the tunnel lights switched on all at once. At the far end, a man stepped into view holding my mother's missing death certificate. He smiled at Adrian first, then at me. You always did trust the wrong people, Elias. The man holding my mother's death certificate was the same identity broker who had created Noah Reed. Daniel Cross, I said. He smiled as if we had met for coffee instead of in a sealed tunnel beneath a hotel under attack. Good. You remember me. Adrian shifted in front of me, his pistol raised. Daniel did not flinch. 2 red laser dots appeared on Adrian's chest from somewhere beyond the tunnel lights. A third settled over Vincent's forehead. Lower it, Daniel said. Unless you want Elias to learn the truth while standing over your body. Adrian kept the weapon up for one long second, then placed it on the floor. Vincent did the same. That changed everything. In the dining room, Adrian had controlled every man with 2 fingers. Here, Daniel had reduced him to stillness without raising his voice. You built my records, I said. You told me no one could connect Noah Reed to Elias Vale. No one could, Daniel replied. Until Moretti said your name in front of 12 men and 3 surveillance systems. You searched my apartment before he said it. His smile disappeared. Adrian had been right. Someone had recognized me first. Daniel held up the death certificate. Your face triggered an archive alert at 6:42 tonight. The notification reached me 4 minutes before Adrian called you Elias. What archive? The one your mother died trying to protect. Adrian's head turned slightly toward him. Don't. Daniel laughed. Still deciding what he's allowed to know. He looked at me. Ask him why the Moretti family had your childhood photograph locked inside a biometric file. Ask him why your scar was listed as an identification marker. Ask him why he has spent 9 years tracking every false identity I gave you. I looked at Adrian. He did not deny it. A cold pressure formed beneath my ribs. You knew about Noah. I found the name 3 years ago, he said. Then why didn't you come? Because every person who searched for Elias Vale was being recorded. Daniel tilted his head. A beautiful answer. Almost true. He slid the death certificate across the concrete. It stopped near my shoe. The document bore my mother's name, her date of death, and the hospital seal I remembered. But beneath the seal was a faint blue number I had never seen before. Daniel pointed to it. That is not a certificate number. It is a transfer code. My fingers went numb as I picked it up. Transfer to where? Your mother was declared dead at St. Vincent's. 16 minutes later, a woman matching her description was moved through a restricted ambulance bay under federal protection. New information. Physical proof. Not a story. Not a threat. A code printed on the paper I had trusted for 9 years. She was alive, I whispered. After the certificate was signed, Daniel said. Adrian's jaw tightened. For 6 months. I stared at him. You knew? I knew she survived the hospital. And you let me believe I watched her die. You watched a sedated woman taken behind a curtain. The body released under her name was never shown to you. The tunnel felt suddenly airless. A memory cut through me. A doctor blocking the doorway, Daniel's hand on my shoulder, my mother's ring sealed inside a plastic bag. I had not seen her face after the machine stopped. Daniel had told me it was better that way. You were there, I said to him. You signed the guardianship release. I got you out. You gave me a false death. Because she ordered me to. Adrian stepped sideways, enough to break my direct line to Daniel. Not shielding me now. Blocking the sniper's clean shot. The movement was small, but deliberate. One of the laser dots drifted from his chest toward mine. Adrian moved again until it returned to him. Trust did not arrive as a feeling. It arrived as evidence. What did my mother protect? I asked. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the envelope in my hand. Open it. Adrian said, Elias, wait. You've had 9 years to explain. I tore the envelope. Inside was not a letter. It was a thin strip of photographic film wrapped around a brass key no longer than my thumb. I held the film toward the tunnel light. Rows of names appeared in tiny white print. Judges, detectives, city officials, men who had sat in the dining room upstairs. Beside each name was a payment, a date, and a symbol shaped like a broken crown. Daniel watched my face. Your father kept the original ledger for the organization that owned this city before the Moretus rose. Your mother stole the access key after he was killed. Adrian said, the ledger can expose every official they control. And every family that paid them, Daniel added. Including yours. Vincent looked at Adrian sharply. There it was, the new crack. Adrian's family was not outside this secret. They were written into it. Why was my name enough to silence the room? I asked. Daniel's expression softened with something close to pity. Because Elias Vale is not the name of a dead child. It is the legal identity attached to the ledger's dead man release. If your survival becomes public, every file opens. The title moment finally had a shape. Adrian had not. Merely recognized me. He had spoken the name that could destroy everyone in that room. A heavy impact sounded behind Daniel. The far security door began to rise. Armed men waited beyond it. Give me the key, Daniel said. I can make Noah read alive again. I closed my hand around the brass. You said Noah was dead. Names are paperwork. I made him once. And Elias? Elias is a trigger. Nothing more. Adrian looked at me, not the key. That is what they need you to believe. Daniel's patience broke. He needs you alive only because the files cannot open without you. And you? I asked. I need the key before the men upstairs decide to burn the entire block. The laser dot moved from Adrian's chest to my hand. Daniel raised 2 fingers. Adrian lunged before the shot came. He drove me behind a concrete support as the bullet struck the wall, then fired Daniel's own fallen death certificate into the air current from a ruptured steam pipe. The paper spun past the laser beams. Vincent killed the tunnel lights. Gunfire erupted. Adrian pulled me through a maintenance hatch I had not seen and slammed it shut behind us. We fell into a drainage passage barely high enough to crawl. Vincent did not follow. Where is he? I demanded. Adrian braced the hatch with his wounded arm as bullets hammered the metal, buying us 30 seconds. He'll die. Yes. No false comfort. No speech. Just consequence. Adrian shoved a phone into my hand. On its screen was the photograph taken in the dining room, the one that had triggered the archive alert. I zoomed in. I was visible near the door. Adrian sat at the table. Daniel was nowhere in the room. But in the mirrored wine cabinet behind me, a blurred face watched from the service corridor. My supervisor. The man I had tried to save. Beneath the image was the archive timestamp, 6:42 p.m. And beneath that, an access signature. D. Cross. Daniel had not received the alert. He had created it. Adrian met my eyes in the darkness. He didn't hide you for 9 years, Elias. Another blow bent the hatch inward. He was waiting for you to become old enough to open the ledger. The hatch behind us caved inward before we reached the end of the drainage passage. Metal screamed against concrete. Adrian shoved me ahead just as bullets tore through the space where we had been crawling. One struck the pipe above us. Scalding water burst across the tunnel, filling it with steam. Left, Adrian ordered. There is no left. He slammed his shoulder into what looked like a solid wall. A rusted panel gave way, revealing a narrow utility shaft. We dropped through it into the basement of an abandoned storefront across the avenue. Adrian landed badly. His injured arm buckled, and for the first time that night, he went to one knee. Blood ran from beneath his sleeve and dripped onto the dusty floor. My phone vibrated again. The hotel security feed appeared without warning. Daniel's men were dragging Vincent back into the private dining room. He was alive, but barely. My supervisor stood beside Daniel now, no longer wearing his frightened expression. He removed his hotel jacket and rolled up his sleeves as if the attack had been another shift he was finally free to finish. Daniel looked directly into the camera. "Midnight," he said. "Bring the key to the Vale residence, or Vincent Moretti dies first. Then every civilian who saw Elias tonight." The feed changed. My supervisor was guiding armed men toward a line of bound hotel employees. The people I had worked beside for 6 months. The dishwasher who brought me soup when I was sick. The bartender who covered my shifts. The manager who complained about my shoes but always approved my overtime. Their faces turned the threat into consequence. "This is because you said my name," I told Adrian. He pressed his back against the wall and tore open his sleeve with his teeth. "It is because Daniel sent your photograph. You made the room a test." "Yes. And now everyone in it is a target." Adrian tied a strip of fabric above the wound. "They were targets the moment he recognized you. That does not make them less dead." His eyes lifted to mine. There was no anger in them. Only acceptance. "No, it does not." I expected him to defend himself. Instead, he handed me his gun. The shift was so unexpected I almost dropped it. "What are you doing?" "Giving you a choice. You expect me to trust you with Vincent's life while you hand me a weapon. I expect you to decide whether I am still the greatest danger in this room." We were alone in a basement with one exit, his blood on the floor, and Daniel controlling every route above us. Adrian could have taken the key by force. He did not even ask for it. I checked the pistol the way my mother had taught me when I was 10 and still believed every locked door could be opened from the inside. Adrian noticed. "She trained you." She was afraid. She had reason. A burner phone rang inside his coat. He hesitated before answering. A woman's voice came through the speaker. "Moretti accounts are frozen. 3 warehouses were raided. 2 captains have switched sides. Someone released proof that Elias Vale is alive." Adrian looked at me. "Who released it?" "The photograph is everywhere, along with the dead man release protocol. Every name connected to the ledger thinks the clock has started." The call ended. In less than 1 hour, my existence had cost Adrian money, territory, and loyalty. The title moment had not only exposed me, it had destabilized his entire organization. "Your people will blame me," I said. "Some already do. And you still want me near you? I want Daniel to stop deciding where you are allowed to exist." He stood, but the effort drained the color from his face. A vehicle stopped outside. Then another. Headlights swept through the cracks in the boarded windows. Adrian's phone displayed a map. Red dots closed around the block. "We have 5 minutes," he said. "To go where?" "Your mother's house." I laughed once, without humor. It burned. The public house burned. He crossed to an old electrical cabinet and pulled out a city utility map hidden behind it. One address had been marked in blue ink. "The Vale residence Daniel mentioned is not your childhood home. Your mother owned another property under a trust. No official record connects it to her." "How do you know?" "Because she took me there the night of the fire." That answer pulled an old image from the edge of memory. Smoke, broken glass, my mother's hand slick with blood, and a second figure outside the window, young, broad-shouldered, carrying a black coat. I had always believed he was one of the men chasing us. "You were there," I said. "You already knew that." "I knew you saw my scar." I did not know why. Adrian opened his shirt collar and turned slightly. A pale burn mark crossed the base of his neck. The same shape I remembered through the smoke. "I carried you out after your mother cut the window." The footsteps above us stopped. Someone tested the storefront door. Adrian lowered his voice. "Daniel did not save you from the fire, Elias. He arrived after I left to draw the shooters away." A charge exploded against the front entrance. Dust fell from the ceiling. Adrian led me through a rear storage room and kicked open a trapdoor beneath a stack of rotting boxes. We entered an old subway access tunnel as men flooded the basement behind us. This time, we were not running toward safety. We were moving toward the place Daniel had chosen for the exchange. Halfway down the tunnel, my phone received another file. No message, just a hospital video dated 6 months after my mother's supposed death. I opened it while we ran. The footage showed a private room. My mother sat upright in bed, thinner than I remembered, but unmistakably alive. Daniel stood beside her. Adrian was there too, younger, blood across his shirt. They were arguing. The video had no sound, but my mother suddenly struck Adrian across the face. Then she pointed toward the door and turned away from him. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. Adrian left alone. The file ended with a scan page from her medical record. Under emergency contact, only one name appeared, Daniel Cross. She trusted him, I said. Adrian stopped walking. For the first time, fear entered his expression. Not fear of Daniel. Fear of what I would believe. That clip begins after he removed 12 minutes. You expect me to accept that? No. I expect you to notice what he wants you to conclude. Another file arrived. This one was an audio recording. My mother's voice filled the tunnel, weak but clear. If Elias ever learns the truth, Adrian Moretti will tell him I chose this. Do not believe him. He betrayed us. The recording ended. Adrian said nothing. Behind us, flashlights appeared at the curve of the tunnel. Ahead, the blue-marked exit to the Vale residence waited behind a steel gate. I held the gun in one hand and the brass key in the other. For the first time since Adrian called my real name, I thought I finally understood why my mother had warned me. Then I looked at the audio timestamp. It had been recorded 3 days after the hospital video, and 2 days after my mother was officially buried for the second time. The audio recording was fake. I knew it before Adrian said a word because my mother had called me Elias. In private, she never did. Not after the fire. Not even when I was sick and half-conscious. She called me Eli, always with the second syllable softened, as if the smaller name could keep the larger one hidden. The steel gate to the Vale residence stood 10 feet ahead of us. Flashlights moved closer behind. I replayed the recording once, then held the phone toward Adrian. She would have said Eli. His eyes sharpened. Daniel never knew that. A bullet struck the tunnel wall beside us. Adrian grabbed the brass key from my open palm, not to take it, but to guide it into a narrow slot hidden beneath the gate's rusted lock. The mechanism clicked. We slipped through, and he pulled the gate closed just as Daniel's men rounded the curve. The first man raised his weapon. The gate released an electrical charge that threw him backward into the others. Adrian stared at the key. Your mother built more than a hiding place. Beyond the gate, stone steps climbed into darkness. I followed him because the men behind us were recovering, and because, for the first time that night, I had caught Daniel manufacturing evidence instead of merely controlling it. At the top, Adrian pushed open a concealed door. We emerged inside a narrow library untouched by fire. Dust covered the shelves, but the room still smelled faintly of cedar and the lavender oil my mother used on her hands. A framed photograph sat face down on the desk. I turned it over. My mother stood beside a much younger Adrian. Between them was a boy with a bandage around his thumb. Me. On the back, she had written, "If he is found, say his name where the guilty can hear it." My knees nearly gave way. Adrian did not touch me. He stayed close enough to catch me if I fell, and far enough to let the evidence belong to me. She told you to call me Elias, I said. Only if Daniel found you first. Why publicly? Because silence was what he needed. A heavy impact shook the gate below. Adrian moved to the desk and pressed his bloodied thumb against a brass plate. Nothing happened. He looked at me. I understood before he asked. The scar across my thumb was not only an identification marker. I pressed it to the plate. A compartment opened inside the desk. There was no ledger inside. Only an old cassette recorder, a sealed legal document, and a second strip of film. Adrian inserted the cassette. My mother's real voice filled the room. Eli, if you are hearing this, Daniel has already found you. My throat closed. One word destroyed the lie in the tunnel. Eli, he will tell you Adrian betrayed us. He will show you my death certificate, the hospital video, and a recording made after my second burial. Those things are real. The meaning he gives them is not. Adrian lowered his head. He had heard this before. I had not. Adrian betrayed the agreement. My mother continued. He refused to let me erase you completely. The accusation in Daniel's recording had been true, but not in the way Daniel wanted me to understand it. Adrian had betrayed my mother by refusing to let Elias Vale die. I wanted the ledger destroyed, she said. Adrian believed the names inside it had to be exposed. We fought. I struck him. Daniel recorded only what served him. The hospital video flashed through my mind again. Her hand across Adrian's face, Daniel comforting her, Adrian leaving alone. Not proof that Daniel was trusted. Proof that he had been filming. The cassette clicked, then continued. Daniel does not want to open the ledger. He wants to erase it. Elias Vale is attached to the Dead Man release, but the release has two functions. If Eli publicly reclaims the name, the evidence begins copying beyond Daniel's reach. If he willingly signs the name away, every copy is destroyed. I looked at the legal document. At the bottom was a blank signature line beneath the words voluntary identity termination. Daniel had not hidden me until I was old enough to open the ledger. He had raised me under a false identity until I was old enough to legally kill Elias Vale. The attack, the hostages, Vincent, none of it was designed to capture a key. It was designed to force my signature. Another blast rocked the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Adrian took the gun from my hand only after I released it, then positioned himself between me and the door. Why did everyone in that room go silent? I asked. Because they knew the protocol, he said. The moment I called you Elias in front of witnesses and cameras, the first stage began. You activated it. Daniel's photograph proved he had found you. I had seconds to choose between keeping you hidden for him or making your survival impossible to erase. The title promise finally turned inside out. Adrian had not exposed me to the room. He had exposed the room to me. Every man who went silent had understood that my name was now evidence, and that their reaction had been recorded with it. The cassette continued in my mother's voice. Adrian, if you kept your promise, he will hate you before he understands. Let him. Do not ask for trust. Earn it by giving him the choice I tried to take away. The gate below cracked. Men spilled onto the stairs. Adrian picked up the termination document and held it over a brass lamp. Your mother wanted this burned. And you? I want you to decide. He handed it to me. Not the gun. Not the key. The choice. I fed the bottom edge into the flame. The signature line blackened first. Then the words identity termination curled into ash. Somewhere inside the desk, a mechanism began ticking. A screen rose from beneath the wood, displaying hundreds of files copying to unknown destinations. 12%. 15. 18. Daniel's voice came through the house speakers. Stop the transfer, Elias, or Vincent dies. A live video appeared. Vincent knelt in the hotel dining room with a gun against his head. Behind him stood the civilians. My supervisor held the weapon. Daniel stood beside the long table, calm as ever. You have misunderstood your mother's final request, he said. She did not want the truth released. She wanted you free of it. The transfer reached 23%, then froze. Access requires Living Vale authorization at Primary Archive. Adrian looked toward the old city map on the wall. One location began flashing beneath the symbol of a broken crown. The Vale residence was not the archive. It was only the starting point. Daniel smiled through the screen. Midnight. Come to the primary vault and sign the name away, or watch everyone Adrian tried to protect die because he called it. I looked at the burning contract, the frozen transfer, and the man who had spent 9 years preserving a name my own mother had tried to bury. Until that moment, my goal had been to survive Daniel. Now survival was not enough. I took the brass key from the desk and faced Adrian. We're not going there to trade it. The pounding reached the library door. We're going to finish what my name started. The transfer failure triggered the house lockdown before we reached the library door. Steel shutters slammed over the windows. The hallway lights turned red. Somewhere below us, Daniel's men stopped pounding and started cutting through the frame with a thermal saw. Adrian checked the screen embedded in the desk. The frozen transfer had already produced consequences. 3 city servers had mirrored the first 23%. 2 had gone offline. A third displayed a warning. Remote purge attempt detected. Daniel had changed tactics. He was no longer trying only to force my signature. He was destroying every copy before I could reach the primary archive. How long? I asked. Until the purge reaches the files already copied? Adrian scanned the numbers. 40 minutes. Less if he controls the municipal network. Midnight was 37 minutes away. The choice I had made in Part 5 had not freed us. It had started a race. Adrian pulled the old city map from the wall. The broken crown marked a property beneath the central courthouse, 3 miles away. The primary vault was built into the original records foundation, he said. No public entrance. Your father used judicial tunnels. And Daniel knows them. He helped design the security. The saw bit through the library door. Orange light appeared along the frame. Adrian crossed to a cabinet and removed a slim black case. Inside were passports, cash, 2 radios, and a small injector. What is that? Coagulant. He pressed it into his wounded arm. His face tightened, but he made no sound. There is a tunnel behind the fireplace. It reaches the river line. Then we go. You go. He handed me one of the radios and the map. I stay long enough to make them believe the key is still here. The words landed harder than the gunfire had. No, Elias. You said the choice was mine. It is. Then stop deciding which risks I'm allowed to see. The saw stopped. Silence followed. Not retreat. Preparation. Adrian looked at the door, then back at me. If we leave together, Daniel will know immediately. He already knows the archive requires me alive. He will follow me whether you stay or not. He may kill Vincent. He may kill him anyway. That was the ugliest truth of the night, and neither of us tried to soften it. Adrian had protected me by making my name public. Now Daniel was using every person attached to Adrian to turn that protection into guilt. The game had changed from concealment to control. I took the second radio from the case and clipped it to Adrian's belt. We leave together. We split only when it changes the odds, not when you decide your life is cheaper. For the first time, he obeyed me without argument. The door exploded inward as we pulled the fireplace grate aside. Adrian fired twice through the smoke. I crawled into the narrow passage and heard someone fall behind us. The tunnel dropped steeply toward the river, wet brick under our hands, sirens vibrating through the walls above. Halfway down, Adrian's radio crackled. Vincent's voice came through, weak and uneven. Adrian. We stopped. Vincent, do not come to the hotel. A blow sounded over the channel. Daniel's voice replaced his. Your loyalty is touching. Unfortunately, it has become inefficient. A gunshot followed. The radio went silent. Adrian froze. No visible reaction. No cry. Just complete stillness. Then his hand closed around the brick wall until his knuckles whitened. We do not know he is dead, I said. Yes, we do. His voice was empty. Daniel had adapted again. Vincent was no longer leverage. He was punishment, a message that every delay would cost someone. The loss changed Adrian immediately. He stopped planning around rescue and started planning around damage. The courthouse tunnels have 3 access points, he said. Daniel will seal the river route once he tracks this signal. He removed the radio and crushed it beneath his boot. There is an old public records annex 2 blocks east. If its internal terminal still connects to the archive, you may be able to slow the purge. May. Your father designed the network to distrust remote commands. A living veil authorization could force a verification hold. We emerged through a storm drain near the waterfront. Police vehicles raced toward the hotel, but none turned toward us. Daniel controlled the emergency response or had redirected it. Across the river, digital billboards flickered. My face appeared on one of them beneath a city alert. Elias Vale, armed, dangerous, wanted in connection with hotel attack. Daniel had turned the truth into a weapon. I was no longer merely exposed. I had been publicly defined before I could define myself. People on the sidewalk looked up at the screen, then at me. Adrian pulled me into an alley as phones began to rise. Noah Reed is gone, I said. Yes. And Elias Vale is now a murderer. Only until you reach the archive. If I reach it. He caught my gaze. When? It was not reassurance. It was a commitment. We crossed through service alleys while the city learned my face. At the records annex, the front doors were chained from inside. Adrian boosted me through a broken basement window, then followed despite his arm. The archive terminal sat behind a security cage. The brass key opened it. My scar unlocked the screen. A prompt appeared. Authorize verification hold. I pressed yes. The purge counter stopped at 61%. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every light in the annex came on. Printers began spitting out pages. Names, payments, photographs, court, orders. Evidence poured into the room faster than I could read it. Adrian picked up one page and went still. At the top was a photograph of my mother, dated 8 months after her second burial. She was entering the primary courthouse vault beside Daniel. Alive, walking freely. Beneath the image was an authorization log signed with her legal biometric code. She went back? I said. Adrian read the timestamp twice. I was told she died before this date. A second page printed. It showed the identity termination protocol had not been created by Daniel. It had been created by my mother. My new objective had been to reach the vault and release the ledger. Now the evidence suggested she had built the mechanism designed to erase it. Before either of us could process that, the terminal changed. Verification hold overridden by primary authority. Purge resumed. 39% of the files remained. Then a live message appeared from Daniel. Your mother is waiting in the vault. Come without Moretti, or she finishes the purge herself. Daniel's next move arrived before I could answer his message. Every printer in the records annex stopped at once, then began feeding the pages back through the rollers. The evidence was being shredded inside the machines. On the terminal, the purge jumped from 61% to 70%. Adrian ripped the power cable from the wall, but the screen stayed lit on backup current. A second message appeared beneath the first. Bring Moretti, and she dies. Leave him, and you may hear her explain. Daniel was not asking me to come alone because Adrian was dangerous. He was forcing me to choose which truth I wanted more. He knows you will follow, I said. Adrian picked up the photograph of my mother entering the vault. Then I will make sure he sees me go another direction. Vincent is dead because Daniel knew what you would do. The words came out harsher than I intended. Adrian did not defend himself. Yes. That answer made it worse. He checked the annex exits while the purge climbed to 73%. Outside, sirens converged from both ends of the block. Daniel's public alert had turned every officer in the city into another wall. If my mother is alive, I said, she created the termination protocol. She may be working with him. Or under him. She walked into that vault. A photograph shows movement, not choice. You said the same thing about the hospital video. Because evidence can be true and still be arranged. He came closer, but stopped before touching me. Elias, Daniel has spent 9 years teaching you to trust the frame he provides. The terminal flashed 80%. We did not have time to argue about my mother. We barely had time to reach her. Adrian opened the security cage and removed a packet of printed plans before the shredder caught them. One route remained into the courthouse foundation, an evidence transfer tunnel connected to the old police garage. Daniel will expect the judicial tunnels, he said. He may not expect us to enter through the department he controls. Us. You heard him. If I come with you, he threatens her. If I do not, he controls the room. So what is your plan? Adrian handed me the courthouse map and kept only one torn corner showing the garage. You enter alone where he expects. I enter where he does not. That is still you deciding for me. No, it is me asking. The difference mattered. So did the fact that he waited. I looked at the map, at my mother's photograph, at the purge counter. 82%. You do not enter the vault until I call your name, I said. Something shifted in his expression. The name that had stripped me of control in part 1 had become the signal that gave it back. Understood, he said. We left through separate exits. Adrian drew the police response toward the river by triggering the annex alarm and stepping into view long enough for 3 patrol cars to follow him. I crossed the adjoining roof, dropped onto a courthouse loading platform, and entered through a service elevator using the brass key. The elevator descended below the public floors. There were no buttons, only a fingerprint plate and a microphone. I pressed my scar to the glass. A mechanical voice asked, "State legal identity." My mouth went dry. Elias Vale. Locks released beneath my feet. Daniel had wanted me to say the name and controlled. Spaces, on his documents, under his terms. Adrian had said it publicly first, where witnesses could not be erased. Now I spoke it because I chose to open the door. The elevator descended another level. When it opened, my supervisor was waiting with a gun. His name badge was gone. So was the nervous hotel employee I thought I knew. You should have come alone sooner, he said. Where is Daniel? With your mother. And Vincent? His eyes did not change. Dead. The answer confirmed what Adrian had already accepted. My supervisor took the brass key and searched me. He missed the tiny radio tape beneath my collar because he was looking for a weapon. I had none. That was the point. He led me through a corridor lined with sealed evidence cabinets. Each bore the broken crown symbol. Behind one glass panel sat my childhood photograph. Behind another was my mother's ring, the one Daniel had given me after her supposed death. The ring had never been proof she died. It had been evidence stored here, then removed long enough to sell me the lie. We entered the primary vault. Daniel stood at a central console surrounded by rows of black servers. The purge displayed 91%. My mother sat in a chair beside him. Older, thinner, her hair nearly white, but alive. For 1 second, the entire room disappeared around her. She looked at me, and her lips parted. Eli. No recording. No manufactured emphasis. The private name. The real proof. I took 1 step forward. My supervisor pressed the gun against my spine. My mother's eyes moved to him, then to Daniel. You promised no one else would die. Daniel rested one hand on her shoulder. Promises depend on cooperation. She flinched beneath his touch. Not much. Enough. The photograph had shown her walking freely. This showed the cost that came after. You created the termination protocol, I said. I did, she answered. To destroy the ledger? To destroy its hold over you. Daniel smiled as if her answer belonged to him. Your mother understood what Adrian never did. Truth is not freedom when every powerful man in the city wants you dead for carrying it. Then why keep the archive alive? Because Daniel changed the protocol, she said. His smile vanished. The purge reached 93%. Originally, your signature would have erased your connection to the release, not the evidence itself. Daniel rewrote it after he took control of the vault. One major loop moved closer to resolution. My mother had tried to free me from the name. Daniel had turned that protection into a weapon capable of destroying the truth. You stayed here to stop him, I said. I stayed because he told me you would die if I left. Daniel's hand tightened on her shoulder. And he told you Adrian betrayed us, I said. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. Adrian betrayed my plan. He would not let Elias disappear. I hated him for it. Do you still? Before she could answer, Daniel struck the console. Steel partitions dropped around the vault entrances. My hidden radio crackled dead beneath my collar. He had detected it. Moretti is beneath the police garage, Daniel said. My men have him surrounded. A security feed appeared. Adrian stood behind a concrete pillar as armed officers and Daniel's men closed from both sides. He was bleeding again. Outnumbered. Trapped. Daniel placed a document on the console. Voluntary identity termination. A fresh copy. Sign, he said, and I stopped the men outside. Your mother walks away. Moretti may even survive. The purge reached 96%. My mother shook her head. Eli, don't. Daniel drew a gun and pressed it beneath her jaw. On the screen, Adrian's cover shattered under gunfire. The vault speakers activated, carrying his voice from the garage. Elias, do not trade your name for me. Daniel smiled. Then trade it for her. 97%. My mother's life. Adrian's life. The remaining evidence. My identity. Every pressure in the story had finally become one choice, and Daniel controlled the clock. He slid the pen toward me as the counter turned to 98. Sign now, he said, or decide which person dies hearing your real name. I picked up the pen and snapped it in half. Daniel's smile vanished. You asked me to choose which person dies hearing my real name, I said. You forgot what happens when I say it myself. The purge. Counter turned to 99%. I pressed my scarred thumb against the authorization plate beside the termination document and spoke before Daniel could pull me away. My name is Elias Vale. I reject identity termination. Initiate living witness release. The vault alarms changed pitch. Not a siren now, but a clear mechanical voice repeating my name through every speaker in the courthouse. Elias Vale confirmed. Living authority active. Daniel fired at the console. The bullet shattered the screen, but the command had already moved beyond it. Adrian had called my name in a room full of witnesses. I had repeated it in the annex. Now I had claimed it inside the primary archive. 3 separate confirmations. The protocol my mother created finally recognized what Daniel had spent 9 years preventing. I was alive, aware, and choosing. The purge froze at 99%. Then the number reversed. 98. 97. Restoring from witness mirrors. Daniel grabbed my mother by the hair and dragged her from the chair. Stop it. You said the copies were gone. They were supposed to be. His control had cracked. That was the answer to the biggest question of the night. He had not wanted the ledger because it gave him power. He wanted it erased because the ledger proved he had built his power by serving every name inside it, then blackmailing them after he gained access. The identity broker, the protector, the man who created Noah Reed. Daniel had been collecting desperate people and turning their disappearances into leverage. You kept me hidden because you needed my signature, I said. You kept my mother alive because you needed her biometric authority. I kept both of you alive, he snapped. Moretti would have used you. Adrian gave me the choice you stole. Daniel pointed the gun at my mother's head. And what has that choice bought you? Vincent is dead. The hotel staff may be dead. Moretti is surrounded. Sign, and I can still end this. No, my mother said. Her voice was quiet, but Daniel looked at her. That half-second was enough. I swept the broken pen across the authorization plate, smearing my blood over the sensor. The system announced a second command, coercion detected. Security testimony recording active. Every camera in the vault turned toward Daniel. His own threat became evidence. He shoved my mother aside and aimed at me. I did not run. Go ahead, I said. Kill the living authority while the release is recording. Every protected file opens automatically. He knew I was right. His finger tightened, but he could not fire without destroying the last control he had. Power shifted in the silence between us. For 9 years, he had survived because I believed my name was dangerous to me. Now it was dangerous to him. The vault speakers crackled. Gunfire echoed from the police garage. Then Adrian's voice came through the open emergency channel. Elias. My signal. I struck the manual release beside the console. The steel partitions rose. Adrian entered through the service corridor with blood on his shirt and my supervisor's gun in his hand. He was alone, limping, and still standing because I had delayed Daniel long enough for the archive to release the first restored files to the officers outside. Their orders had changed the moment they saw evidence linking their commanders to Daniel. Adrian had not been rescued by luck. The proof I released had broken the chain controlling the men surrounding him. Daniel swung his weapon toward Adrian. I stepped between them. No, Adrian stopped. Daniel stared at me as if I had lost my mind. He will kill you the second you stop being useful. Then that will be his choice. I looked at Adrian. Lower the gun. His enemy stood 6 feet away. Vincent was dead because of him. Adrian's entire organization had been attacked. Still, after one hard breath, he lowered the weapon. He trusted my decision more than he wanted revenge. Daniel did not understand that kind of power. He raised his gun again, this time toward Adrian. My mother drove the brass key into the emergency lock beside her chair. A transparent barrier dropped between Daniel and the rest of us. His shot struck reinforced glass. He turned on her in disbelief. You said the key opened the archive. It opens every system I designed, she said. Daniel was trapped inside the command bay with the recording. Cameras still active. The restored counter reached 60%. Names began appearing on the courthouse network, then on public servers beyond Daniel's reach. Judges, detectives, officials, payments, orders. The truth no longer belonged to one family, one mafia leader, or one frightened boy with a false name. Daniel slammed his palm against the glass. You think this makes you free? Every man exposed tonight will hunt you. Maybe, I said, but they will have to hunt Elias Vale in public. His face changed at last. Not anger. Fear. The same fear I had seen around the dining room table when Adrian called my name. The title moment completed its plot payoff. Everyone had gone silent because they knew the name could force hidden power into the light. Daniel had counted on me being too wounded to use it. Courthouse security entered through the restored access doors. This time, their body cameras were streaming directly to the witness archive. Daniel could not bribe a room already broadcasting. He dropped the gun. My mother sagged against the chair as officers opened the command bay. I reached her first, but she looked past me toward Adrian. You kept your promise, she said. Adrian's face tightened. Not all of them. Vincent's absence filled the room. Victory did not erase its cost. My mother touched the scar across my thumb. I tried to save you by making Elias disappear. I know. And he saved you by saying it where everyone could hear. I looked at Adrian. In the dining room, his voice had taken control from me. Here, he waited for me to decide what came next. Say it again, I told him. He understood. Elias Vale. The name moved through me without turning into fear. The archive reached 100%. Daniel was taken through the same steel doors he had controlled minutes earlier. The main conflict was over. The ledger was released. My mother was alive. Adrian had chosen trust over revenge, and I had chosen my identity without trading anyone's life for it. But as the alarms faded, I saw the blood on Adrian's shirt, the exhaustion in my mother's face, and Vincent's empty place beside us. I had reclaimed my name. Part of me still did not know how to live inside it. The first thing I heard after the alarms stopped was silence. Not the fearful silence that had frozen the dining room hours earlier. This one felt different. It was the sound people made when they no longer had anywhere left to hide. Officers escorted Daniel through the courthouse with cameras following every step. No one lowered their eyes for him anymore. No one pretended not to know his face. The same public witnesses he had spent years manipulating had become the reason he could never disappear again. My mother leaned heavily against me as paramedics wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Adrian stood several feet away while another medic stitched the wound in his arm. We looked at each other across the room, neither of us speaking. There was nothing left to argue about. The truth had already done that for us. Eli. My mother reached for my hand. She had called me by the same name from the recording, the real one, not the careful lie Daniel had manufactured. I'm sorry. I looked at her scarred hands. They were older than the ones I remembered, thinner, marked by years I had never shared with her. Which part? I asked quietly. Tears gathered in her eyes. Trying to save you by making you disappear. I smiled sadly. You weren't the only one. She understood immediately. For 9 years I had buried Elias Vale with my own hands. Every morning I answered to Noah Reed. I had believed survival required forgetting who I was. It never had. Survival had required enduring long enough to reclaim it myself. Across the room, investigators carried sealed evidence cases from the archive. Every box bore the broken crown symbol. Every camera recorded the chain of custody. The ledger would never belong to one family again. It belonged to the truth now. An officer approached Adrian. Mr. Moretti, she said. The district attorney wants your statement. Adrian nodded but did not move. In a minute. She followed his gaze toward me, then quietly stepped away. He crossed the room slowly until he stopped in front of us. Your mother needs a hospital. She'll go, I said. After one thing. My mother turned toward Adrian. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then she reached into the blanket around her shoulders and removed a folded piece of paper. It was old, the edges softened from being opened too many times. I wrote this 9 years ago, she said. The day after I hit you in that hospital room. Adrian accepted it without unfolding it. You never gave it to me. Daniel never let it leave the vault. Adrian opened the page. I watched his eyes move across the lines. His expression changed only once. A quiet breath. Then he folded it again. She apologized? I asked. He looked at me instead of answering. She asked me not to stop looking for you. My mother nodded once. By then I knew I had been wrong. No dramatic reunion. No speeches. Just two people who had carried the same regret for almost a decade finally setting it down. Outside the courthouse, dawn had begun washing color across the city. News helicopters circled overhead. Reporters shouted questions behind police barriers. Giant screens that had shown my face beneath the words wanted now displayed something else entirely. Courthouse corruption network exposed. The photograph beneath the headline was not mine. It was Daniel's. I stood at the top of the courthouse steps and watched strangers read my real name on their phones. Nobody pointed. Nobody whispered. Nobody looked afraid. A little girl tugged on her father's sleeve and asked who Elias Vale was. He read the article for a second before answering. Someone who finally told the truth. The words settled somewhere deep inside me. Adrian joined me outside. The city council requested witness protection, he said. New identity. New records. You could disappear again if you wanted. 9 hours earlier, I would have accepted before he finished the sentence. Now I looked down at the brass key resting in my palm. It had opened doors, archives, hidden rooms, and old lies. I closed my fingers around it, then handed it to the lead investigator walking past. It belongs in evidence, I said. Adrian watched me let it go. No regrets. 1. Vincent. I nodded. Adrian looked toward the rising sun. He knew what this would cost. That doesn't make it easier. No, we stood together without speaking. The silence between us no longer needed fear to fill it. My mother came outside a few minutes later. She slipped her arm through mine like no time had passed at all. Ready? She asked. For what? She smiled through tired eyes. To go home. I almost answered that I didn't have one. Then I realized I did. It wasn't a house. It wasn't a name on a forged driver's license. It wasn't a city where nobody recognized my face. Home was the place where I no longer had to hide from my own name. Adrian started toward his waiting car, then paused. Elias. Months ago, even hours ago, hearing that name would have frozen every muscle in my body. It had once meant exposure, danger, and loss. I turned toward him without fear. Yeah. He smiled for the first time since the night began. Take care of yourself. I will. He gave a small nod, then left without asking me to follow. That was the final promise he kept. He never tried to own the name he had protected. He simply made sure it belonged to me again. As the morning crowd grew, voices filled the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted. Cameras clicked. People called my name from every direction, asking for statements, for answers, for proof that everything they had just witnessed was real. This time, I didn't flinch. I didn't lower my head. I didn't reach for a fake badge with someone else's name clipped to my chest. I simply looked up, breathed in the cool morning air, and answered to the only name that had ever truly been mine. The Alpha Mafia had called my real name, and once, everyone in the room had gone silent. Now, when I heard it, the only voice I needed to recognize was my own.